Welcome to the Hugh Hewitt Show on the day after Christmas. I'm not sure how it relates to Kwanzaa. I don't know when quite Kwanzaa begins, but you know we're gonna keep our eyes open for it because we celebrate everything here on the Hugh Hewitt Show, and we thought we'd be celebrating a news-free day, but of course not. Of course, there's still news happening. In Trump 2.0, there's always news happening. What's the big news today? We're taking it to the Nigerians, and we're taking it to them hard. This is down my alley. I'm guest host Kurt Schlichter, sitting in for the great Hugh Hewitt, who's off probably chasing grandchildren around the Christmas tree, somewhere off in the wilds of Maine or Virginia or wherever else he's hanging out. Who am I and why am I here? As Admiral Stockdale, a guy I got to interview as a college student, once said. Well, I'm the senior columnist at townhall.com. I am a retired United States Army infantry colonel. I'm a retired, well, not retired, I still have my license, but I just don't practice trial law anymore, but I did that for 30 years here in Los Angeles, although I sometimes live in Texas. I'm also an author with many, many books, including the new one, and I'm going to raise it up here so you can see it. This great cover by Sean Salter, conservative artist, another friend of Andrew Breitbart. Panama Red. It's the latest Kelly Turnbull adventure in the People's Republic series. Panama Red. You should go get Panama Red right now and read it. And you know, I keep saying Panama Red because I've learned much from Hugh Hewitt because I've been a listener for years. And I've known Hugh for years. I guess that's why he's crazy. I mean, polite enough to let me sit in for him. He says he always cites the Frank Luntz rule, the Frank Luntz rule of books. You must name your book, Panama Red, 7 times for people to listen to you. Panama Red. So let that become an earworm. You're going to love Panama Red. Go see it. Back to the news. And again, who knew? Well, Christmas came early for the Christians of Nigeria. Now, you may have heard, but the Christians of Nigeria are the victim of what is actually a genocide, an attempt to murder an entire people. Islamic fanatics in Nigeria have been murdering Christians, burning their churches, stealing their children. The government of Nigeria is either powerless, unable, or unwilling to do anything about it. Well, in steps the United States of America to stop yet another genocide. And I'm a guy who's been part of that. I served in Kosovo after 9/11. I also served in Desert Storm 35 years ago right now. I was out in the vicinity of Hafr al-Batin in the Saudi Arabian desert waiting for things to kick off. I'm so happy with America's new foreign policy. I'm not one of those... You know, they keep saying, the neocons want to fight all sorts of wars. I don't want to fight all sorts of wars. I would prefer not to fight any. But you know what I prefer less? To stand back as innocent Christians are butchered by psychopathic savages. And we're not doing that. We're not doing it. But guess who's upset about it? That's right. Most of leftist Twitter. In an amazing turn of events, you thought it was bad enough, right, when they sided with the Maryland man who was beating the hell out of his wife. And how do I know that the Maryland man was beating the hell out of his wife? Because his own wife put that in a sworn affidavit twice. But no, they loved the Maryland man. They wanted him to stay in America. They went and had margaritas with him in El Salvador. Now they're siding with the Islamists. Now they're saying, well, you know, America can't stand up when innocent Christians are being butchered. Oh, wait a minute. Wait a minute. Weren't you leftists just screaming about genocide just a few weeks ago? Right? When Israel was kicking Hamas' tail. Now, that wasn't a genocide. That was a war on an armed enemy. Now let's compare the Nigerian Christians and the Hamas guys. Hamas guys go on a rape murder spree, killing over 1,000 Israelis. That's tens of thousands if you put it in a country the size of the United States. The Nigerian Christians were worshiping their Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. There's a slight difference there. Can you pick it up? As a lawyer, we distinguish fact patterns. I think it's a pretty easily distinguished fact pattern. And I am proud that our country is standing up to protect innocent people. Well, Kurt, you just like them because they're Christians. Well, I do like them because they're Christians, but you know where I was 20 years ago right now? I was in Kosovo. You know who I was protecting? Muslims. 90% of the Kosovar Albanians are Muslim. About 10% are Catholic. Mother Teresa was a Catholic Kosovar Albanian. I don't distinguish between who I protect from genocide. I have personally protected Muslims. I am glad that my country is standing up to protect Christians. And, of course, I am proud that my country has offered its full-throated support to the protection of Jews. And I know that may be controversial in some corners of the right-wing establishment, and I take no second place to anybody in the hardcore rightness of myself. I start out with Andrew Breitbart, as Hugh mentioned several times this week. My conservative credentials are unchallengeable, except by drooling morons. I am proud, though, that our country is willing to use its power for what is right. It's willing to use its power for what is right against the aspiring dictators of Europe by sanctioning some of these bureaucrat parasites who presume to tell America. They're telling Americans what we can and can't say. You know, I spent about 4 years of my life over in Europe cleaning up their messes. And the last thing I'm going to have is some Euro trash weenie bureaucrat imagining he gets to tell me what I can and can't say on social media. Not going to happen, Fritz. Hey, Pierre, pound sand. Not in the cards. Never going to happen. And, you know, we're taking a stand against the people who are murdering Americans by importing poisonous chemicals in the forms of drugs. We see American forces blowing up boats, and I love the argument. I'm a lawyer, right? I love arguments, especially bad ones. It's like when you watch Plan 9 from Outer Space. The Plan 9 from Outer Space of arguments against blowing up drug boats is, well, actually, they're not fentanyl because the fentanyl doesn't come from Venezuela. It's cocaine. Okay, fentanyl kills about 70,000 Americans a year. Cocaine kills about 25,000. You have made a bad argument. Let's hear what Pete Hegseth has to say about these Venezuelan boats. Cut 5.
You're exactly right. There are no fishing poles, no fishermen, and no fishing boats. Just drug dealers and narco terrorists. And with every strike, we're saving American lives. No other president was willing to do real deterrence. That's exactly what's happening. It's an honor to be here, Mr. President.
Damn straight, Secretary of War Pete Hegseth. I almost wish that I met height weight standards so I could come back on active duty for a while just to savor the vibe of being in an American military that functions. Because I've been retired about 11 years now, and I got to tell you, I was feeling bad about the state of my beloved United States Army. But Pete Hegseth, he's bringing it all home. And he's bringing it hard. And he's bringing fear to the people who should be afraid. You shouldn't be afraid. Your family shouldn't be afraid. Americans shouldn't be afraid. You know who ought to be afraid? Jihadi scumbags ought to be afraid. Hamas terrorists ought to be afraid. European bureaucrats who would presume to throw you in jail for saying something, they should be afraid. And drug-dealing scumbags in the Caribbean or the Eastern Pacific, they should be afraid too. We will triumph over fear. We're Americans. God bless America. That bumper music is, of course, the theme to the film Exodus, about a bunch of tough Jews who built a country and saved a people. My next guest is Eli Lake. You know him as a Free Press contributor. You can follow him at Eli Lake, and he's also the author of the Breaking History podcast. Eli, welcome to the Hugh Hewitt Show.
Well, Kurt, it's great to be here, and happy holidays, Merry Christmas, an early Happy New Year.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. And I also appreciate what you do on Breaking History, because I just listened to your latest episode, Tough Jews, and it gave me something I love, which is a chance to learn some history I didn't learn. Tell me a little about Meyer Lansky's contribution to punching Nazis.
Well, I would say he's the pioneer of punching Nazis, because in the 1930s, Meyer Lansky, at least according to Meyer Lansky, we should say the historical record's a bit spotty, was approached by two very prominent leaders of in the Jewish community at the time, Rabbi Stephen Wise and Nathan Perlman, a Republican congressman and judge, and was basically asked to say, listen, the American Bund, which is the main Nazi movement, is expanding. They are making a play to try to win hearts and minds. They're intimidating Jews. And we would like you to gather some of your tough guys and do what you do best and beat them up. And that's what he did. And it wasn't just Lansky, I should say. I mean, the history is really interesting, because what I didn't realize, well, let me put it like this. I didn't really know it in the detail until I did the research. The Jewish organized criminal class was not only worked with the Italians, and we know them as the mafia, but they were in this period probably as powerful as the Italian mob. And what it was an effort to try to say, looking at Europe and the idea that, you know, the fascists in Italy and Germany were not legitimate political ideologies that could coexist in a liberal democracy. Sometimes you have to, as I say in the podcast, it takes a thug to beat a thug, and that is what happened. And so, you know, the big showdown occurred in what is today the Upper East Side, was then known as Yorkville, and there was Hitler's birthday. There was a big rally, and Lansky had a couple guys infiltrate. He had a other couple guys at the exits, and he caused a commotion, and a lot of brown shirts ended up having a pretty bad day.
Well, you had kind of a throwaway line in your Breaking History podcast. The Italian mob, who are famous, if you've watched The Godfather, you know, not great guys, but famously Catholic, they came to Lansky and said, hey, we want to help.
And Lansky said, no, it's something the Jews have to take care of themselves. Lansky is a very proud guy when it comes to this stuff. We should also say this is a part of this history is also that once America enters World War II, Lansky and Lucky Luciani, who basically creates the five families, and, you know, kind of is the modern version of the mob, although it's hard to say that the mafia exists like that today. In fact, it really doesn't. But they were approached by the FBI, and they were enlisted to basically use their network to help keep Nazi infiltrators and out of the ports in New York and the Eastern Seaboard. So that's another part of that story. So, you know, in a situation like World War II, when you're facing the Nazis, even America's organized criminals, who of course were in their own war against the U.S. government and the law at the time, but they were willing to cooperate in a moment like that, much the same way you might add the way that, you know, the United Kingdom and the United States had cooperated with Joseph Stalin, who's obviously one of the great villains of history.
Well, Eli, like, you end your podcast, you begin it talking about Bondi Beach. Yeah. And, you know, it was evident that no one's coming to rescue you early on. And you close talking about Bondi Beach to reemphasize that. And you say, you know, I hope the next time they come, the haters come shooting, I hope they meet some Jews who are packing. Tell me, like, that's kind of a, you know, there is an impression of Jewish Americans as very, very liberal. You know, my personal experience is a little different, but people have that impression. And the idea of Jews carrying guns in America, and we're going to talk a little more about with Saul Litvak, who directed a movie called Guns and Moses later in the show. But that seems a little unusual. Are Jewish Americans starting to say, wait a minute, we got to be our own first responders?
I mean, first of all, Australia, as you know, confiscated its firearms nearly 30 years ago after a mass shooting. And I mean, I still would like to find out how this father and son, Syrian refugees managed to get special dispensation to own long guns. I'd really like to know the answer to that. How did that happen? Because apparently they were licensed. But in America, I am hearing anecdotally, and I didn't put it in because it's not, I don't have statistics on it. I'm hearing anecdotally a number of Jews who have applied for firearms permits for the first time. And I have to say that I don't think it should take it to 11. I think that I wouldn't recommend at this point, recreating America Hana's Jewish Defense League. They did things that were clearly over the line, entirely illegal. But if there are these new groups, and the Hebrew word is shomrim, it means guardians, and they're like young guys largely who organize. Sometimes they coordinate with the local police, but they're like a self-defense group. If you're gonna, even if it's not a lethal encounter, if you have these examples that we saw about 4 or 5 weeks ago in the Upper East Side at Park East Synagogue, they were swarmed, they were mobbed by a bunch of Palestine solidarity activists who falsely claimed there was a Palestine land sale involved in the synagogue. If you're going to target synagogues and you're going to make it impossible for Jews to worship when they want to worship at their temple, well, then there ought to be people not starting a fight. I'm not talking about vigilantism. I'm saying just a physical cordon that says, no, make way. These people are here. We're not going to be part of your Instagram, protest here, and get out of here. And I actually think if you send the right message, because the end result was the American Bund didn't take off after Lansky sent his guys to break up those meetings. They learned that that the Jews, at least in America, were not going to be easy targets. And I think that when you're dealing with a threat like that, when you're dealing with pure hatred, that is a different matter than like trying to win an argument. I'm a great believer in civil society, as you are as well, but you have some experience in the military, and when you are looking evil in the face, whether it's an American Nazi or it's somebody who is motivated by the kind of absolutely extreme jihadist ideology that says that Israel shouldn't exist, at a certain point, you have to sort of fight fire with fire. That's my view.
Eli Lake of the Free Press. Go listen to his Breaking History podcast, particularly the last one. They're all good, but this last one was fascinating. I had no idea about any of this history. Thank you, Eli Lake, for joining us on the Hugh Hewitt Show. That is one of my favorite bands, the Jesus and Mary Chain. In 1986 at UC San Diego, before they had remedial classes in math, I went to see them at the Revell Cafeteria. There were about 50 people there. I was the only one, me and my buddy were the only ones wearing color. Everyone else dressed completely in black with Hawaiian shirts, and they were all depressed, and we're sitting there cheering. We actually left the show to go get more beers. Then we came back. They played for 20 minutes and refused to face the audience. It was the greatest concert of my life. Anyway. Gosh, that's a little weird for a right-wing retired Army colonel, senior columnist at townhall.com, author of Panama Red, the new novel, and trial lawyer. But, I try and check many boxes, some of them surprising. What isn't surprising, though, is that though I've been retired for 11 years, I still believe you lead from the front, which is why when Hugh Hewitt asked me to come in and guest host, I immediately said yes. And the second thing I did was send all the money I'm making today, the palatial sum that I'm being rewarded for guest hosting here, I sent it to Angel Tree because I'm going to ask you to do the same. What is Angel Tree? We're in the last few days of the final week of 2025. Let me take a moment to thank you for your generous gifts who donated to Hugh's Angel Tree Christmas campaign so far. Men and women like you have donated enough to all our Salem Radio Network talk shows to bless over 16,000 boys and girls on Christmas morning, kids with a mom and dad in prison. And you know what? Those kids are going to need help next year, too. The work of Prison Fellowship goes on year-round, helping children of prisoners through their Angel Tree Camp program, Angel Tree sports clinics, and other outreaches that your gifts make possible. And they help break the cycle of crime. If you'd still like to make a donation, and you should, I did it. You've got no excuse not to. Just head over to HughHewitt.com and click on the Angel Tree banner. Hey, it's tax deductible, right? You got 6 days to take care of it. The Angel Tree Christmas campaign is a special project on our calendar, and we have, it just fills our heart to help these children with moms or dad in prison. So thank you for helping show the love of Christ through your generous gifts to our friends in Prison Fellowship by going on HughHewitt.com, click the Angel Tree banner, or you can call, score a tax deduction at the year end, and make it, and make that donation. Okay? Angel Tree. Go do it now. I did. You've got no excuse. There are people making excuses. They're making excuses for the terrorists killing people in Nigeria. And it's not just any people, it's fellow Christians. These Islamic fanatics are murdering them. And President Trump said, hell no, we're not doing that anymore. Of course, there being no real news anymore, it's hard for me to find the information I'm really looking for, like exactly how many targets were serviced by what weapon systems. It does appear that we launched cruise missiles from destroyers, probably out in the Atlantic. The cruise missile has various forms. Some of them involve cluster munitions, which will just ruin a jihadi's day. Okay, when when they meet their 72 virgins, they're looking pretty raggedly after they take a cluster munition hit. I am all for this. I love this, but then again, I've done it. I went and protected Muslims in Kosovo. I strongly support America protecting Jews in Israel, and I absolutely support Americans protecting Christians in Nigeria. But some people don't believe it. Some people are saying, "Oh, there's no big problem here." Here's a cut from Yalzra El Gabir on MS Now. Cut number 9.
The Nigerian government has come out and acknowledged publicly that they were working with the U.S. In these strikes, that there was security cooperation. But their officials have also had to reiterate that they are not focusing on the protection of one religious group over the other. The Nigerian government has insisted that Christians are not being disproportionately targeted by terrorists in Nigeria, and the data just doesn't back that up either. Trump has been repeating these claims, appearingly to appease his far-right Christian, evangelical Christian base, who have long condemned the targeting of Christians in Nigeria. But having been in Nigeria and been in communities that are targeted by Boko Haram and by ISWAP, I've seen for myself that these communities are often Muslim, that there's no discrimination between Christians and Muslims. And just on Christmas Eve, a bomb exploded in a mosque in Maiduguri, the capital of Borno State, killing at least 5 people who were there to worship.
Look, it's not a great argument to say that the Islamic Jihad types, the ISIS types, are an equal opportunity mass murderers. They're murdering Christians, but yes, they probably murder Muslims too. That's more reason to wipe them off the face of the earth, not less. God bless President Trump. God bless Pete Hegseth, our Secretary of War, and God bless America's troops. They're doing God's work. Look, I was an Army colonel, but I'm the green sheep of the family. My entire family was U.S. Navy. I'm being joined by John Conrad, who is qualified to talk about some of this Navy stuff, but he was from what a professional would tell you may be the most important component of American sea power, the United States Merchant Marine. Because, John, I'm going to throw you a softball. Professionals talk operations. Or, I'm sorry, amateurs talk operations. What do professionals talk?
Logistics. Always logistics, Kurt.
Oh, you're the best. You have been a huge voice out there, particularly in the last few days, since Donald Trump presented his idea for a new battleship. And a lot of people have the impression we're talking the old New Jersey or Iowa, which were amazing in their time. And, of course, their time extended to my time. They were off the coast of Kuwait during Desert Storm, and I was there. Why battleships? Why now?
I love those ships too, but the world has changed, right? 80 years since World War II, since those Iowa class were built, there are new threats now, and there's enormous pushback against this battleship idea. I've never seen anything like it in my 20 years reporting on this. Just massive amount of pushback, mainly from the left, but some professionals too. They don't realize what this is. This isn't a reincarnation of the old, but it has some of those features like that shore bombardment that, Army and Marine Corps love so much. But what this is really about in the Red Sea, we threw everything at the Houthis: Army, Air Force, Navy, submarines, 2 aircraft carriers at once. The only thing that was effective in protecting those logistics change at the choke point were our destroyers. They did great, but they ran out of fuel and ammunition too quick. So really think about this as a hybrid between that Iowa class and a larger destroyer that can stay on station for longer.
Well, you're not talking something with 12, 18-inch guns. You are talking something with firepower that can be delivered onto the shore. And fire support is the main infantry killing system. It's not our rifles. It's calling in fire on things. So I love that. But what you're really saying, tell me if I'm wrong, I'm just a landlubber, ships that are bigger tend to be able to go faster. They also tend to be more survivable. They also tend to be able to hold more ordnance. And that makes them essentially a fort.
Absolutely. That's a great way of thinking, forward fort. But that fort has to be resupplied, right? We have the underway logistics. We're the best in the world at underway replenishment of our carriers, giving that aviation fuel to the carriers. But because of this, bad decisions by previous administrations, plus this UN International Maritime Organization, all their green rules, are oilers. We have too few of them, and they have all this environmental junk on it that's limiting their effectiveness. So we're tapping into our merchant marine tankers, but they are slower and less effective. So the underway replenishment isn't as good as they used to be. Plus these vertical launch cells, they can't be replenished at sea. So the destroyers in the Red Sea had to go all the way back to Bahrain to get resupplied. On top of all that, the destroyers, we have new laser weapons. We have new electronic warfare weapons. Man, there is we're trying to fit 10 pounds of you-know-what in a 5-pound bag here with these destroyers. There's no room for this extra stuff. A battleship gives you that hull space to store more fuel and munition, but also add new capabilities.
Well, look, the old battleships, and I've been to the USS Iowa here in Los Angeles. Unbelievable. It is a real eye-opener to walk around on that. And they saw I was a colonel, so they kind of took me in the back and showed me around a little more. Very impressive. But you were talking 1,500 or so crew. Would you have a giant crew on one of these, or would you be able to leverage the AI and automation to have a much smaller manning footprint for these new vessels?
Well, the Navy came out with the initial specs. They're thinking 600 to 800 people. And this is another question. We can't, a carrier group, the carrier alone has over 5,000 people, plus the destroyer screen and the submarine. That's a very vulnerable threat to send out there to a choke point or to start inching closer to China. Because this is a fortress and has amazing defensive capabilities, you can put it out there at a little more risky areas than a carrier, and instead of losing 5,000 people, you'll lose 600. This myth, and this is what happened with our frigate program, which was just canceled. We tried to make it survivable against anything, where you could throw a nuke at this thing and it may still float. That's great, but in a war, things are going to sink. People are going to die. We have to accept more risk. And I would rather risk 600, 800 people than 5,000 in a carrier. But if you send this out, this can be a missile sponge. The Chinese are going to shoot a lot of hypersonics and drones. Everyone says, well, what's going to happen? Well, bring it on. You deplete those stockpiles of those things and let these amazing new weapon systems, the laser, the integrated CIWS, the deck guns, handle this, deplete some of those munitions and hold strategic choke points. And it also is a command and control for drone swarms too, which people are forgetting.
Now, Captain John Conrad, you're CEO of gcaptain.com, and you can follow John, and you should, at John Conrad with a K on Twitter. A lot of civilians out there are going to be going, you mean you're going to draw fire? Yeah. Yeah, that's how we as officers think. You have to fight. And sometimes you move out and draw a fire so the other guy can take you down. But these aren't pushovers, like I said before. And again, I'm just a landlubber. But a bigger ship tends to go faster. You have the power to go quick. You can move. You've got laser defenses. You've got missile defenses. This isn't a pushover. This is a floating fortress. We have about 15 seconds.
Yeah, and then here's another crazy thing that we're just putting on this. It's called armor. You know, all of these Navy ships, they're very thin steel, or like the LCS aluminum. Hey, how about some of these missiles are going to get through, but if you have a thick steel armor.
Didn't the Sheffield, which was taken out by an Exocet off the Falklands, wasn't that aluminum? And didn't we learn from that?
Absolutely, and Trump wants to bring back the steel industry with this, so we get the armor and we get more steel capacity from manufacturing. Win-win.
That's a win-win-win. John Conrad, Captain John Conrad, CEO of G Captain. Follow him at John Conrad. Another guy who wants an America strong and powerful. We all do here at the Hugh Hewitt Show during this holiday season. And, of course, the premier holiday of this season is Kwanzaa. Governor Tony Evers of, I believe, Michigan or Wisconsin, one of those states, I don't know, one of those states that has football that Hugh hates. Well, he had a Kwanzaa message for everybody. Number 10.
Hello, Wisconsin. Governor Tony Evers here.
And I'm First Lady Kathy Evers.
We just wanted to take a moment today to wish all those celebrating a very happy Kwanzaa.
Celebrated the 7 days leading up to the New Year, Kwanzaa is a celebration of family, community, and culture.
And during the celebrations throughout the United States, families and neighbors will come together to recognize the 7 principles of Kwanzaa: unity, self-determination, collective work and responsibility, cooperative economics, purpose, creativity, and faith.
With the goal of remembering what's really important, building community, solving problems together, supporting one another, and celebrating culture and community as sources of strength.
These are the values we can all share. So to all those celebrating across Wisconsin, happy Kwanzaa.
We wish you celebrations full of love, joy, and community.
Okay, that's a bunch of commie gobbledygook, as Norm Macdonald would say. What the hell? Collective economics? Unity? What kind of... No, we're not doing any of that. First of all, this is a fake holiday founded by some Long Beach State communist professor, you know, when he was out of jail. It's a joke. It's a clown show. Kwanzaa. And, of course, you got Krusty McWhiteboy there. The guy makes Wonder Bread look ethnic. Okay? I don't even know what to say. It's a joke. He's like one of these old guys, right, who gets out there and, like, starts protesting. No kings! No kings! I'm 79 years old. I was near Woodstock. I didn't quite get in because the music was too loud, but I was near it. I'm old. What the hell? Kwanzaa. Okay, stop. It's embarrassing. Look, there's an option out there. I want you boomers to take it. I want you boomers to embrace the concept of dignity. You don't have to look like idiots. You don't have to make fools of yourselves. You don't have to go in for this commie garbage spawned by some freaky radical who is ratting out his buddies to the FBI, which is arguably the only good thing about him. Kwanzaa. Happy Kwanzaa. You know what the perfect Kwanzaa gift is? Panama Red, the new novel by Kurt Schlichter. Panama Red for everybody on your Kwanzaa list. Happy Kwanzaa. Jeez! Stop! My next guest used to be a lawyer too. He's also recovering from it. I just met Sal Litvak recently after watching his movie Guns N' Moses, which is out now. It's available on Amazon for free, and I gotta tell you, it's a lot of fun. So I thought I'd invite him on here to talk a little more with us. Sal, welcome to the Hugh Hewitt Show.
Kurt, wonderful to be with you.
Well, look, you've done something that I don't think anybody's ever done before, which is make a let's see, pro-Second Amendment, very pro-Jewish action film that's in the conservative sphere and doesn't look like it was made in somebody's barn. It is a real movie. And I want to say congratulations. I truly enjoyed it.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. And just today, we found out that Religion Unplugged, a wonderful publication, issued its list of the top 10 faith-based films of 2025, which included some big titles like Angel Studios, The Last Rodeo, and David. And number one on the list of top 10 faith-based films of 2025, Guns N' Moses. And the writer, Joseph Holmes, a great film critic, mentioned exactly what you're saying, Kurt, that it used to be that films in the faith-based space look kind of cheesy. They weren't at the same quality level as Hollywood, but they've come a long way. And now you can find films that are right up there in terms of production value, star power, and sheer entertainment. And thank God Guns N' Moses is number one on that list.
Well, look, you've got some great stars on it. Donald Mulroney, Neil McDonough, who people remember from, Justified and Band of Brothers. He's always terrific. They're great in this thing. But your star, the main character is a very nice, very kind, seems like maybe even a little liberal rabbi in a small community, and he undergoes some changes and ends up being packing heat. And the actor is so fantastic. You buy the entire transition of this character, and he's a lot of fun to be around. He's not a cardboard cutout, though.
Not at all. So the actor Mark Feuerstein plays the character Rabbi Mo Zaltzman. And I know a lot of people in the audience, served in the armed forces or serve in law enforcement. Yep. And they take seriously the idea of using a firearm. In Hollywood, it's so ridiculous when somebody needs to learn how to shoot. They put a few tin cans on a fence. He misses the first one, hits the next one. And, in 15 seconds, he's a dead shot. That's not the real world. It's very difficult to handle a firearm properly and safely and effectively under that kind of pressure, God forbid. And so we take the rabbi through real training in the movie based on my own real world training. I didn't grow up around guns, but the threat level to the Jewish people has been rising so fast and so hard. In recent years, I joined a volunteer security organization. I learned how to use and carry a firearm. I have my concealed carry permit. Please God, none of us should ever have a need to use these skills. But if we do, we will not be a soft target. And we depict that on screen for the big screen with Rabbi Mo in Guns N' Moses.
Well, Saul Lidvack, again, director of Guns N' Moses. What I thought was interesting was, look, all the problems don't get solved with a gun. Okay, I mean, it's not like
That's
Panama
sure.
Red where everything gets solved with a gun. I thought it was very interesting the way the character interacted with a young man who had embraced radical hate group ideology, and I found that interaction was actually very moving.
Yeah, so the way it is a murder mystery. Guns N' Moses is a murder mystery. And there's a killing at a synagogue event right in the first scene. And the cops arrest a young white nationalist who has made harassing remarks to the rabbi and his people in the past. They find the murder weapon in his car. It's obvious he did it. Case closed. But it doesn't smell right to the rabbi. And since the cops won't investigate, he does. And so you have this incredibly unusual situation that it's a rabbi who's the only one who believes in the innocence of a young white nationalist and who goes out to find the real killer. And this kid who, ends up hating Jews has probably never met a Jew in his life. And so much of that is going on. There are people out there who benefit by stoking hatred. And the kid was radicalized online. But the rabbi can see past, this kind of superficial hatred and see, there's a young man there. There's a real kid there. He's got a heart and he can be reached. So often I think when people break bread together, they can get past kind of superficial isms that can separate them. And that's an important theme in the movie.
Well, look, in Guns N' Moses, there's a lot more going on than in a lot of mainstream Hollywood entertainment. Unfortunately, this wasn't put out by a big studio. I think it could have been. It should have been. It's certainly higher quality than a lot of the nonsense, the woke garbage that we see. Tell us a little about your journey as a conservative filmmaker and some of the challenges you faced.
Well, I'm glad you put it that way. I mean, Hollywood is a godless town. Let's just start with that. This place is lacking in values. I know you spent some time here in Southern California. You know it as well as anybody, Kurt. There's just a lack of good values, traditional values in this town. They've got their woke ideology. It infects everything that they do. And getting a movie like Guns N' Moses made, I mean, it just wasn't going to be possible in the normal route through the studios, et cetera. So we were able, thank God, to raise the money to attract top-tier talent to the story, to the script, to the movie. The difference, when people, like you said, when you watch our movie, it looks like any studio movie. The difference is we shot it in 4 weeks instead of 12 weeks, like Hollywood would have done. And that required that everybody be on board, trust me as a director, work 1 million hours a day. Thank God we got it done. But where the other big difference is that when Hollywood releases a movie, they spend as much or more as they spent on making it to market it. That we didn't have, okay? We didn't have, $5 or $10 or $20 million to market the movie. And so it's been a challenge getting the word out there. We're so blessed and thankful that the movie's becoming a word of mouth hit. People are telling their friends, they're having watch parties. I mean, it's a really fun movie. Forget the belief system of it and, all the values, which are important. But at the end of the day, my job as a director is to entertain the viewer, and people are entertained. But it's just taking time to get the word out. And one other thing, which maybe you've encountered along the way, is there are people out there who oppose any kind of conservative ideology, any kind of traditional values.
Just a few.
Just a few. And they make it so difficult. I mean, we got word that the New York Times had a good review of the movie and killed it. They wouldn't run such a review because it's pro-Second Amendment, it's pro-faith, et cetera. We have a 93 audience score on Rotten Tomatoes. We even have a 73 critic score. It's like, that's perfect, 20 points higher on the audience. But we don't have as many reviews as we should have because they will, just bury anything that isn't in line with the woke ideology. And we have to find alternative means to get to the audience. I mean, there's been a robust conservative radio network for a long time, but we're in a culture war. We are in a culture war, and we got to have movies that reflect our values. And when such a movie comes along, people got to support it with their feet, with their wallet, watch it. I mean, it's easy to watch at home now. We're free with subscription on Prime, or you can rent or buy on other platforms. It's not such a big deal to get it. So get it. Watch our movie. You're going to enjoy it.
Yeah, you really are. You had reached out to me. I hadn't had a chance to get back to you. I was skipping around Amazon. It takes me 20 minutes to find something. I saw Guns N' Moses. I said, I'll give it a shot. And we watched the whole thing, and we legit enjoyed it. Because as Andrew Breitbart said two important things. First, politics is downstream from culture, so we got to do our own culture stuff. But also, it's got to be good. You can't ask people to watch junk. Sal Litvak, director of Guns N' Moses, thank you for joining me on the Hugh Hewitt Show. Everybody, Guns N' Moses. Go out and get it. Go out and check it out. And there are 2 books that I want to show you. First, Panama Red, the new Kurt Schlichter novel. It is a lot of fun. You should get it. But I also want to show you A Rage to Conquer. It's the newest history book from my buddy Michael Walsh, who is now my guest. Michael, welcome to the Hugh Hewitt Show.
Thank you, Kurt. Pleasure to be with you here from soon to be a foot of snow in northwestern Connecticut.
Well, I'm about to float away here in Southern California. I blame global warming because it's never snowed or rained before.
No, snow in December in New England is unheard of, so you can just see how much damage we've done to the climate. Let's face it.
Well, of course, we're relying on history, and your book, of course, is an ode to history. I love it because it's 12 battles that changed the Western world. It's amazing. Our friends on the left, they're not so big on history. Why is that? Why do they hate history?
Yeah, I think history teaches them that what they believe isn't true. That is to say, the minute you start looking at it seriously, you realize that their premises are false, and therefore you move away from the narrative that they keep trying to impose. Howard Zinn, the quote, historian, unquote, is the architect of all this, but there have been a lot of leftist historians in the first half of the 20th century and into the second half of the century that pushed this narrative: America bad, slavery, reparations, bigotry, racism. All their buzzwords come from that. And when you learn to not be afraid of their buzzwords anymore because they're not true, first of all, that's the number one reason, and that sticks and stones can break your bones, but names will never hurt you, then you can fight back. So what I try to do in this book and did in previous book called Last Stands, and now in the new book I'm writing, The Wrath of God, is to go back to the historical sources and say, here's what happened. This is the best summary of all of the eyewitnesses and first primary sources that I can find, and this is my interpretation of them, and this is what I believe to be the truth. That's what historians do.
Michael Walsh, I'm on social media once in a while, and it seems that people are not only ignorant of facts, they're immune to them. They simply believe things that aren't true and refuse to believe things that are manifestly and obviously true. And it's almost Orwellian in the way that they can convince themselves that what they're seeing and hearing are not actually what they're seeing and hearing.
Well, they want to believe. What's happened is that sports has now become the identifying parable for everything we do. We choose up sides, and we love our Red Sox, and we hate those Yankees, no matter what. The teams change players, the cities change, you change, but most diehard sports fans immediately go to the tribe and then begin to fight the rival tribe. It's like the monkey tribe in 2001 at the beginning. And we've now applied that to politics. So it's Trump is the lightning rod, and so whatever he does is either the worst thing ever or he's great. And there's no interpretation, there's no middle ground, there's no time for nuance. It's all this emotion-driven hysteria. Mostly, I'm afraid, on X, Twitter, some on Facebook as well, which I also am on. But I really think this is bad for the country. I think people should mostly calm down and shut up. That's what I mostly think.
Well, look, I think so much is emotion, so much is preconceived notions, and then you bend the facts to support them. Your pre-existing conclusions. What that does is eliminate the whole concept of argument, which presumes the chance to change someone's mind. And if you don't resolve, let's talk history. If you're not resolving arguments through debate, what does that leave you to resolve arguments?
Well, I would say fisticuffs and clubs mostly, which is the direction that we're heading. You see, the left has now basically given permission to shoot us. They obviously did it with our friend Charlie Kirk. They've taken shots at the president. The left killed 3 of the 4 presidents who've been assassinated. 3 of the Republicans. The Democrats killed 3 of the first 6 Republican presidents. They just assassinated them. So this is not anything new. But it's their go-to default mode, and we really have to be on our guard against this. They don't like debate because they're going to lose. That's the problem.
I think their challenge is they have trained a generation of conservatives and patriots to respond to what they're doing. And, of course, we got all the guns. So as Chairman Mao, who normally they'd listen to, said all power comes from the barrel of a gun. At the end of the day, if the currency is pure power, I kind of like our odds.
Well, obviously we don't want it to get to that point, and we would prefer reasoned debate. I mean, yes. I have changed my mind on some issues after delving more deeply into them.
And you're Irish.
Different directions. And I'm Irish. That means I'm stubborn and stupid. So if I can do it, anybody can do it. But if you can't engage in an argument, of intellectual argument, then what's left, as you just said, but a resort to force? And
Yes.
the left loves force.
Well, let's
They love it.
Well, let's look at what's happening in Europe right now. We have the Europeans saying we love free speech. We're just against hate speech and irresponsible speech and disinformation, which will all be defined by us. And coincidentally, we'll support our regime and undermine any challenge to our regime.
Well, their regime is what I call the EU-SSR. By the way, let's take a brief moment of silence to mourn the passing of the Soviet Union on this date in 1991. And I had left that benighted country about 6 months before, just before the coup against Gorbachev, and you could see the country was on its last legs, and it collapsed just out of the blue. Now we have the EU-SSR, which is headed for the same fate, hopefully more quickly than the USSR does.
Do you think that the Europeans have enough manhood that wasn't bled out on the Somme, didn't die on the fields of Europe in World War II, and of course they're disarmed, and you can't be a man if you don't have a weapon. How are they going to fight this nanny dictatorship? We have about 30 seconds.
Yeah, I'll give real quick. The Europeans don't define freedom the way we do.
Clearly.
When I first moved to Germany in 1989, they said, yeah, America, yeah, it's okay. Yeah, you can become a millionaire. Yeah, but you could also sleep under the bridge. And I said, yes, but Americans think we could end up sleeping under the bridge, but we're going to be a millionaire. So this is the difference in how they think. For them, freedom means Napoleon. Author, dominant, top-down authority.
Well,
that's freedom.
As my Scottish mother said, all the good ones left. Michael Walsh, always great to talk to you. Go get A Rage to Conquer. It is fantastic. Angel Tree. Every year, Hugh Hewitt has a campaign to help the children of prisoners. And Angel Tree is an amazing organization. I donated my entire generous salary for today to Angel Tree before I even came in here because I wanted to be able to look you in the eye and say, I did it, you can do it. The Angel Tree Christmas campaign is a special project on our calendar every year because we all have such a heart for helping children with moms or dad in prison. We want to thank you for showing the love of Christ through your generous gifts at Prison Fellowship by going to HughHewitt.com and clicking on the Angel Tree banner. It's right up there at the top, HughHewitt.com, Angel Tree banner on top. And there's a bonus. You can score a year-end tax deduction if you do it before New Year. So get out there, donate to Angel Tree, HughHewitt.com, banners at the top. Angel Tree, I did it. You can certainly do it. Let's talk a little about what's happening over in Europe. We mentioned that with our friend Michael Walsh. Let's go to Jimmy Kimmel. This is cut one.
I honestly have no idea what's going on over there. I do know what's going on over here, though. And I can tell you that from a fascism perspective, this has been a really great year. Tyranny.
Okay, you're an idiot. Stop. I can't listen to this guy anymore. I'm about to use non-FCC compliant language. First of all, this was Jimmy Kimmel talking to Europeans. Okay, you scumbag. You're going and talking to foreigners bad about your country? What the hell is wrong with you? What is wrong with you? And you don't know what's happening over there? Well, let's let 60 Minutes tell us. Cut number 8.
Yes, it is.
And that's clear. Is it a crime to insult somebody in public?
Yes, it is.
And it's a crime to insult them online as well?
Yes.
The fine could be even higher if you insult someone in the internet.
Why?
Because in internet, it stays there. If we are talking here face to face, you insult me, I insult you, okay, finish. But if you in the internet, if I insult you or a politician,
that sticks around forever.
Yeah.
If somebody posts something that's not true, and then somebody else reposts it or likes it, are they committing a crime?
Yeah, in the case of reposting, it is a crime as well because
okay, stop! I cannot take these goose-stepping twerps. All right, I would say that they look like the SS, but the SS apparently had an exercise program, and none of them did. This is the kind of soft nanny state fascism that we absolutely reject. This is why America has sanctioned several European bigwigs, because they want to take their scummy little dictatorship garbage and apply it to Americans. Let me explain how this works, okay? Every human being was endowed by his creator with certain inalienable rights. One of them is the right to speak freely. One of them is the right to write whatever he feels like, whether it's insulting or not. Hey, Horst. Well, actually, Horst is kind of a masculine name. What's kind of like a feminine one? He looks more like a Fritz or a Fritzy. We're going to say and do whatever we want. Now, you Germans may decide you want to throw each other into camps. I mean, you've got practice over saying things. But that kind of primitive garbage, because civilized people don't arrest people for speaking. Civilized people don't punish people for speaking. Civilized people have free speech. And they're saying, well, it is free, except, okay, no except. When you have the except, that swallows the whole of it. There are no exceptions. There's no hate speech exception to free speech. And you're saying, well, that's just the American Constitution. No, that's a human right. The American Constitution creates no rights. The American Constitution simply refers to pre-existing rights and reiterates that no legitimate government can ever infringe upon them. We have a right to speak freely. We have a right to write what we see fit. We have a right to assemble, to petition for the redress of grievances. And if we want to insult a politician, it's a jailable offense to insult a politician, you goose-stepping sissies. You've got like the worst of Nazis combined with the worst of these kind of campus feminine weirdos who think they could tell us what we could say or do. I didn't spend 4 years of my life cleaning up Europe's mess, working for NATO, to let a little femboy like you tell me what I can and can't say. I'm Kurt Schlichter. Just getting started here on The Hugh Hewitt Show.
The Hugh Hewitt Show is now...
And of course, that's Motorhead covering David Bowie's Heroes. That's my walkout music, baby. I love it. This is great. I love guest hosting on The Hugh Hewitt Show. I love being able to promote my new book, Panama Red, the 9th Kelly Turnbull novel. Go get Panama Red right now. But what I love most of all is I get to bring interesting people on. And there's few people more interesting than Mark Caputo, who's Axios' White House reporter. You should follow him at Mark with a K, Caputo with a C. Mark, welcome to the Hugh Hewitt Show.
It's Mark with a C, but I like what you're saying. How are you?
Hold on. I'm going to do the glasses thing. We're gonna vibe on the same glasses. What do you think?
I love it. Yeah, I got that Scorsese look going on. You
know. Look, Mark, I've already written a column for Town Hall for Monday, and it's called Can You Feel the Vibe Shift? I think there is a vibe shift after, we had about 7 great months with Donald Trump at getting things done. Then things kind of slowed down. People were kind of asking, well, hey, when's this economy going to turn around? The administration kind of stepped on its own feet a few times. But I think in the last week or so with the GDP and the inflation numbers and us sending Islamists to hell in Nigeria, which is awesome, I think we have a vibe shift. I think we're turning around. I think people are looking around going, maybe things aren't that bad. Am I crazy?
I don't think you're crazy. I don't know if you're premature or not. Let's give it a few more months. But one of the things that Trump, Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary, Howard Lutnick to a degree, have been saying is the end of quarter one, beginning of quarter two of 2026, you're going to start to see this confluence of events of lower interest rates, the effect of the, as they call it, the big beautiful bill, all the tax provisions start to kick in, not just no tax on tips, but also various depreciation rules, which are going to enable corporations to hire more. The borrowing costs are going to be cheaper, and on, and people are going to start to really feel it. that's their hope. And to your point, so far, so good. The inflation numbers look good. GDP was certainly better than expected. And this is what they've been saying all along. But again, we don't want to focus too much on the blip. Let's check out the trend line.
Well, Mark, I think I think we've had a interesting couple of weeks in some other areas. We apparently have pretty high public support for the campaign against the drug boats. Now we're blowing up Islamists who are murdering Christians in Nigeria. It does seem, and again, I fully support destroying drug dealers and Islamist fanatics. I'm totally in on it. But there are a lot of conservatives who are out there saying, hey, we were promised no more wars. These are kind of like wars. Do you think that's going to have a major drag on the Republican Party over the next year?
I mean, I don't know. What I do know is that there were a lot of predictions of how the Republican Party was going to come apart at the seams, how MAGA was divided. If Donald Trump would join Netanyahu's bombing campaign of Iran. Trump did. It was successful for what Trump set out to do, and there was no divisions afterward. Republicans, to the degree that they weren't sort of in line and behind the president, fell in line and got behind the president. So it depends on what it looks like. I think if Venezuela is a real sort of hot war with an invasion, that might tend to really divide the party and cause problems. But I just don't get the feeling that that's really on the table. Trump is saying everything's on the table, but some things are more likely to be on the table than others, and a full-on invasion hot war isn't. You plugged your book, Panama Red. One of the things I've been stressing to people when they talk about U.S. adventures in Latin America and how they failed, the one success that they point to, that U.S. policymakers or Trump supporters or the Trump administration points to, is in Panama. In 1989, there was an indicted leader, Manuel Noriega. He had stolen his last election. He was therefore declared a dictator. And the United States engaged in a hot war. The United States invaded, snatched him, took him back to the United States. He was convicted and the like. And now Panama is a flourishing democracy. Now, will Venezuela look exactly like that? I can't say that. But there is a template for the United States engaging these sorts of regime change operations in a very hot and aggressive way and not having it become sort of a post-Iraq invasion hellhole.
Well, Mark Caputo, look, we've had some problems within the conservative movement. We've had some people who were formerly part of it who've saying incredibly stupid things, Candace Owens, and some incredibly crazy things. And we've been told that this is going to tear the Republican Party apart. I'm interested in whether the White House worries about that. Are they afraid we're going to ideologically tear ourselves to shreds?
If they are really worried about it, they're not really leading it on. The main thing I get out of the White House here is just sort of a frustration. The Epstein files has been sort of a drag.
It's
Trump
an
administration,
IQ test.
Yeah, well, they haven't been able to get from behind the eight ball on sort of the messaging of it. But that aside, and that's just causing a level of frustration at the media coverage. There's a lot of commentary you see, especially on social media. I don't want to just say media, but the broader conversation on social media, factoring in a lot of liberals, is that Donald Trump is in damage control. Shoe is about to drop. Why is he lying and hiding things? But the reality is that what we've seen so far, we've been at this for about a decade. I wrote about this the other day in Axios for our piece about how there was still a lot of time and a lot of documents to go before everything was fully disclosed. That after a decade of media coverage and public awareness of Jeffrey Epstein, after countless investigative reports that have been issued, and scores of lawsuits and complainants, victims, survivors who have gone public, and thousands, tens of thousands of emails, and now documents, in some cases, documents that normally would not have seen the light of day, and pictures, photographs, thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of photographs. After all this totality of everything we've seen, we haven't yet seen any credible evidence that Donald Trump engaged in sex trafficking with Jeffrey Epstein or sex with a minor. It's just sort of not there. So currently where we are now, there are maybe a million more documents to go. And then there's the stuff that the Epstein estate has. Maybe that'll change. Maybe something will come out. But it's starting to seem like that's not going to be the case, at least as of now.
Well, Mark Caputo, you are the Axios White House reporter. You can follow him on Mark Caputo. Mark with a C, Caputo with a C. Thank you for coming on the Hugh Hewitt Show. Happy New Year. Dwayne!
Yes.
What is happening in Minnesota? What's that all about?
It's like California light. It's
California cold.
California cold, yes. It's California corruption in a microcosm. Minnesota seems to have a thing about wanting to bleed just a metric, ton of cash on the Somali community completely fraudulently. Tom Emmer, the House Whip who's from Minnesota, came out today and said, when we add it all up, it's probably going to top $9 billion in fraud. That's a lot of money in that state. Well, one of the things that came out of it is over the last couple of days is there's a guy named Nick Shirley who has been coming out with some expose videos. He's discovered millions and millions of dollars every year being spent on Somali daycares for the
Somali daycares
for children to be educated and taken care of while the Somali parents are off doing whatever it is Somali parents do for work, and the kids are in daycares paid for by you and me Minnesotans,
of course,
and federal taxpayers. Except, of course, they went to some of these Somali daycares, and they're empty. There's no kids. There's no one there.
Are you saying that many people in the Somali community are stealing from the government? Dun, dun, dun.
Well, of course, we've seen it with other aspects, too. But now it's like every possible benefit welfare program that could go to that the Somali community could somehow weave a narrative to claim they've apparently done. And it's just millions and millions. We talk about trying to get people to donate to Angel Tree.
Yep.
Just, a little bit here and a little bit there goes a long way. We're talking billions in Minnesota, in one state, just wasted on nothing.
And you're saying Tim Walz, Mr. Jazz Hands.
Jazz Hands himself, yes.
The icon of masculinity.
Yes.
Is not adequately supervising his state government. No, I'm shocked. Shocked.
Just over the last week, Tim Walz has done, 4 or 5 different media appearances and just given one excuse after another for why this is going on.
I'm guessing it's largely Trump's fault.
That's one of them, but it's like the John Belushi scene in Blues Brothers. It's the excuses scene.
You screwed up. You trusted us.
Yeah.
That's Animal House. I'm Kurt Schlichter, guest host here on the Hugh Hewitt Show.